All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling the whole world of instructional design.
Exciting.
It really is. We're diving into Chapter 10 of that educational planning resource that you shared, which is all about planning and execution. So whether you are prepping for a big training session or designing an online course, or even if you're just fascinated by how people learn, this one's for you.
It is fascinating, this stuff. You know, we often think about instructional design as just something for teachers and trainers.
Right.
But these principles, they can be applied anywhere learning happens.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Boardrooms, online communities, even just explaining a new game to a friend.
Right.
Understanding these concepts
Yeah.
can really help anyone be a more effective communicator and educator.
It's like having a secret weapon
Yeah.
for knowledge transfer. And our source material starts off strong. It jumps right into these key components of instructional planning.
Okay.
And it really emphasizes having a systematic approach rather than just, winging it. What stands out to you about that?
Well, I've seen firsthand how projects can completely go off the rails when planning is neglected.
Right.
Like once I was consulting for this company that was rolling out a new software system.
Okay.
And they were so focused on all the technical aspects, they barely even considered how their employees would actually learn to use it.
Oh, wow.
They skipped the audience analysis, rushed the content sequencing, and basically just threw a bunch of technical manuals at people.
Oh, no.
It was a disaster.
Ouch. That sounds painful.
It was.
So they basically skipped the blueprint phase and tried to build a house without knowing who would live there or how the rooms connect.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
They had all the material, but no real plan for putting them together effectively.
Wow.
And the result.
Yeah.
Frustrated employees, low adoption rates, and a lot of wasted time and money.
That's a perfect illustration of why that systematic approach is so important.
Absolutely.
And the source material lays out these 4 key components.
Okay.
Learning objectives, audience analysis, content sequencing, and resource allocation. Let's break those down a little bit.
Okay.
Starting with learning objective,
Right.
it stresses the importance of SMART objectives.
Right.
And I have to admit, sometimes I struggle with making them truly measurable.
Oh, yeah?
Any tips from your experience?
It's a common struggle. People often get caught up in these broad statements like participants will understand project management.
Right. Okay.
But how do you actually measure understanding?
Yeah.
A more concrete objective might be something like participants will be able to create a project timeline using specific software by the end of the training.
Okay.
Now that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Perfect.
Hitting all those points of a SMART objective.
That's a great example. It's so much clearer when you frame it in terms of a specific action or outcome.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about audience analysis.
Okay.
It makes sense that knowing your audience is crucial.
Right.
But what are maybe some less obvious factors that people often overlook in this phase?
You'd be surprised how often people forget to consider learning styles.
Oh,
and preferences.
Okay.
For instance,
some
learners, they thrive in a hands-on environment,
right,
while others, they prefer visual or auditory learning.
Okay.
Failing to account for those preferences can really make your instruction less effective.
Right.
Even if the content itself is solid.
It's like trying to teach someone to swim by giving them a lecture.
Exactly.
You need to get them in the water.
You got it.
So you're not just thinking about who they are,
right,
but how they learn best.
Exactly.
And that feeds directly into the next component, content sequencing, how you structure the information.
Absolutely.
Can make or break
the
learning experience.
Totally.
Speaking of structure, sections B and C of our source material really get into crafting that detailed plan.
Okay.
And they emphasize presenting information in a logical order that builds on prior knowledge. It reminds me of that quote about how good sequencing helps learners make those aha connections.
Yes.
Rather than feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely, There's all sorts of different approaches, like going from simple to complex or focusing on prerequisite skills first. The key is to create a smooth flow of information that feels intuitive to the learner.
Right.
Jumping around haphazardly will just lead to confusion.
Right. It's like building a puzzle.
Yeah.
You need to start with the edges, work your way in, not just randomly placing pieces wherever you feel like it.
That's a great analogy.
And that brings us to resource allocation.
Yes.
Which is often overlooked.
Oh, absolutely.
But incredibly important.
It is.
It's not just about listing out your resources.
Right.
Human, financial, material, technological. It's about thinking strategically about how those resources support your chosen teaching methodologies and learning outcomes.
Exactly.
I once worked with this school that wanted to incorporate more hands-on science experiments into their curriculum.
Yeah.
But they hadn't allocated enough budget for lab equipment and materials.
Oh, I see.
They had a fantastic vision.
Right.
But without the right resources, it was never going to be successful.
It's like having a recipe, but no ingredients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The best intentions won't get you very far without the means to execute them.
I love that. Yeah. You need to think carefully about whether your resources align with your goals and the needs of your learners.
Exactly.
Do you need specialized software?
Yeah.
Guest speakers? Field trips?
Yeah.
All of this needs to be considered during the planning phase.
Now, things get really interesting when we enter the world of educational technology. Section D of the source dives into all sorts of tools, learning management systems, interactive whiteboards, even VR and AR.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
And this is where it's so easy to get caught up in that shiny new toy syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Technology can be incredibly powerful, but it's not a magic solution in itself.
Right.
I'm always a little wary of people who think that just throwing technology at a problem will automatically make things better.
So you're saying it's not about the tech itself, but how you use it.
Exactly.
Okay.
The key is to select tools that truly align with your instructional goals.
Right.
And are accessible to all learners.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I've seen so many cases where technology is implemented without proper consideration for accessibility.
Right.
Leaving some learners behind.
Yeah, that makes me think about my own experiences with online learning. Yeah. Some platforms are so user-friendly and intuitive.
Yes.
While others feel clunky and frustrating to navigate.
Totally.
If the technology gets in the way, it just defeats the whole purpose.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so crucial to choose wisely and to involve learners in the process.
Oh, interesting.
Get their feedback on the tools you're considering.
Yeah.
Are they easy to use?
Right.
Do they enhance the learning experience? Or are they just a distraction?
It's all about being thoughtful and intentional, not just jumping on the latest tech bandwagon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of being thoughtful, let's shift gears a bit and talk about monitoring and adjusting instruction.
Right.
Section E of our source material really emphasizes that effective instruction is an iterative process. It's not just set it and forget it.
Right.
We need to be constantly checking in, gathering feedback,
yes,
and making adjustments along the way.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's crucial.
Okay.
The idea of responsive teaching really resonates with me.
Okay.
It's about being flexible and adapting to the needs of your learners as you go. Think of it like sailing a boat.
Okay.
You wouldn't just set sail and expect to reach your destination without adjusting your course.
Yeah.
Based on, the wind and the currents.
So you're constantly monitoring the conditions and making adjustments to stay on track.
You got it.
And in instruction, those conditions include things like learner engagement, comprehension levels, and feedback on the effectiveness of your methods.
Exactly.
The source material outlines several tools for monitoring effectiveness.
Okay.
Things like LMS analytics, formative assessments, feedback surveys, even peer observations.
Right.
It seems like the key is to use these tools to gather data.
Yes.
And then actually act on that data to make improvements.
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Data without action is meaningless.
Right.
Let's say, for example, you notice that learners are consistently struggling with a particular concept.
Okay.
Do you just keep plowing ahead?
Yeah.
Or do you pause, revisit the concept.
Right.
Maybe try a different approach.
Right.
That's where responsive teaching comes in.
It reminds me of the saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Exactly.
If something's not working, you need to be willing to change course.
You do, and that willingness to adapt is what separates good instructors from great ones.
Oh, interesting.
It's about being learner-centric.
Okay.
Putting their needs first and constantly striving to improve the learning experience.
Well said. Now, let's dive into a real-world example.
Okay.
All these principles in action.
Right.
The source material features a case study about a company called Innovated
Okay.
and their Project Leadership Essentials program.
Right.
Have you ever encountered a similar approach in your work?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The Innovate case study is a fantastic illustration of how a systematic approach to instructional design can lead to tangible results.
Okay.
They were facing this challenge.
Yeah.
They needed to create a program that balanced foundational and advanced project management concepts and make it engaging for a diverse group of learners.
So how did they tackle this challenge?
Well,
were there any specific strategies?
Yeah. First of all, they were meticulous about defining their learning objectives.
Okay.
They didn't just say, participants will understand project management.
Right. Yeah.
They went deeper.
Okay.
Outlining specific skills and knowledge learners would acquire.
Yeah.
And how those would be demonstrated.
That sounds very much in line with what we discussed earlier.
Exactly.
About making objectives specific and measurable.
Absolutely.
Did they also pay close attention to their audience's
for sure.
needs and preferences?
Absolutely. They conducted thorough needs assessments.
Okay.
And took into account the diverse backgrounds and learning styles of their participants.
So they weren't just designing a one-size-fits-all program.
Exactly.
They were tailoring it to the specific needs of their learners.
That's right.
What about the content itself?
Okay.
How did they approach sequencing and delivering the information?
They were very strategic about it. They started with the core project management principles.
Right.
Building that solid foundation before moving on to the more advanced topics.
Okay.
They used a blend of teaching methods, lectures, workshops, group projects, even e-learning modules.
Wow.
To cater to different learning styles and keep participants engaged.
That sounds like a very comprehensive and well-rounded approach.
It was.
But did they just deliver the program and call it a day?
No.
Or did they continue to monitor its effectiveness and make adjustments?
They were committed to continuous improvement.
Oh, wow.
They built in regular feedback mechanisms, formative assessments, surveys, focus groups.
Okay.
To gauge how the program was landing with participants.
So they were constantly gathering data and using it to refine their approach?
Exactly.
What were the results of all this effort? Did they see a positive impact?
The results speak for themselves.
Okay.
Innovator saw a significant increase in participant engagement compared to their previous programs.
Okay.
Completion rates skyrocketed.
That's great.
And it wasn't just about the numbers.
Yeah.
The feedback from participants was overwhelmingly positive.
Oh, that's great.
Highlighting the program's effectiveness in blending theory with practice.
That's a testament to the power of well-crafted instructional design.
Absolutely.
By taking a systematic and learner-centric approach.
Yes.
Innovated created a truly engaging and impactful learning experience.
They did.
But I'm curious, what about applying these principles outside of a formal setting like that? Could they be used for more informal learning experiences?
Absolutely. Let's say you're trying to teach a friend how to play a new board game.
Oh, I love board games. Okay, I'm listening. Walk me through it.
Right.
How would you apply these instructional design principles in that situation?
Okay, so think about your learning objective.
Right.
You want your friend to not just grasp the rules,
but
actually enjoy the game.
Right, of course.
That means considering their personality and past experience with similar games.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, if they're super competitive, maybe I emphasize, like, the strategic elements. If they're more casual, I focus more on the, fun factor and ease of play.
There you go. That's your audience analysis in action.
Okay.
Then comes content sequencing.
Okay.
You wouldn't bombard them with the entire rule book up front.
No way.
Right.
Information overload. I'd probably start with, the basic mechanics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how to move the pieces and the general flow of the game.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then, as they get comfortable, You introduce more complex rules and strategies.
Okay.
Maybe even demonstrate a few tactical moves.
Ooh, that's smart.
Right.
It's like scaffolding their learning,
yes,
building up their knowledge gradually.
I love that.
And the resources in this case would be, well,
yeah.
the game itself, obviously.
Right.
But also like my own knowledge and experience as the teacher.
Precisely.
Right.
You might even use visual aids.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Or diagrams to explain certain concepts. Maybe even, play a practice round.
Yeah.
Where you walk them through the steps.
This is making me realize that good instruction is happening all around us.
It is.
Not just in classrooms.
Yeah.
It's about being mindful of how we share knowledge and make it digestible.
And that intentionality is what often separates a smooth learning curve from a frustrating one.
Something else that struck me in Section E was the emphasis on feedback.
Yes, very important.
It's not just about getting feedback as learners, but also giving it effectively as instructors.
Absolutely.
I remember times when I've received feedback that was so vague, it didn't help me improve at all.
Oh, for sure. Like just, good job, or you need to work on this.
Right, exactly.
That doesn't give the learner anything concrete to act on. The source material talks about being specific and actionable.
Okay.
For instance.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, your presentation was confusing, you could say, I noticed the audience seemed lost when you were explaining the third point.
Okay.
Maybe try using a visual aid to illustrate that concept.
Right. That's so much more helpful.
Right.
It pinpoints the exact area that needs work and offers a suggestion for improvement.
Exactly. And on the flip side, as instructors, we need to be open to receiving feedback from learners.
Totally.
It can be tough to hear criticism, but it's essential for growth.
Totally. It helps us identify blind spots and refine our approach. But let's be realistic. Not every learning experience requires a meticulously documented plan.
Right.
Like the innovated case study.
Right, yeah.
How can we apply these principles in a more casual, everyday way?
Even without a formal plan. Just taking a few minutes to consider your learning objective, your audience.
Right.
The best way to sequence information.
Yeah.
It can make a huge difference.
So even if I'm just teaching my friend a new recipe, I can still be a more effective instructor.
Absolutely.
By thinking about those elements.
It's about being intentional and thoughtful.
Yeah.
Even in those informal settings.
Right.
Remember, instructional design is an iterative process.
Okay.
It's not about getting everything perfect up front.
Right.
But starting somewhere.
Yeah.
Gathering feedback and making adjustments along the way.
Okay. That takes some of the pressure off, right?
Exactly.
It's not about being a flawless expert from the get-go, but being open to learning and adapting as you go.
It's about fostering a growth mindset, both for yourself as the instructor and for the learner.
I like that.
Ultimately, it's about making learning engaging, effective, and enjoyable.
I love that. It brings a sense of playfulness to the whole process.
Exactly.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear what's resonating with you so far.
Okay.
What are some of the key takeaways that you're finding most valuable? For me, it's that shift in perspective, seeing instructional design as something that can be applied anywhere, not just formal education settings. It's like unlocking a superpower.
It is.
For sharing knowledge effectively.
I agree. That's a really powerful takeaway.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how the world of learning itself is constantly evolving.
Right.
New technologies are emerging all the time.
Yeah.
And learners' needs and expectations are changing right along with them.
That's so true. We can't just rely on the same old methods and expect them to be effective forever.
Right.
We need to be adaptable, willing to experiment, and most importantly, listen to our learners.
That's a crucial point, the importance of feedback.
Yeah.
I've seen so many instances where instructors get stuck in their ways, doing things the way they've always done them, without taking a time to truly understand what their learners need and want.
It's like driving with your eyes closed.
Exactly.
You need to be aware of your surroundings, adjust your course as needed.
Yes.
And be open to new directions.
And that brings us back to that core principle of being learner-centric.
Yeah.
It's not about us as instructors.
Right.
It's about creating the most effective and engaging learning experiences for the people we're trying to reach.
And those experiences can take so many forms these days.
They can.
We've talked about traditional classroom settings, but what about online learning? mobile learning, personalized learning paths.
Oh, yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
They really are.
It's an exciting time.
It is.
To be involved in instructional design.
Absolutely.
With technology opening up new frontiers all the time.
All the time.
We can now create immersive, interactive learning experiences that were unimaginable just a few years ago.
I know.
Think about virtual reality simulations.
Right.
Where you can step back in time and experience historical events firsthand.
Wow.
Or gamified learning platforms that make acquiring new skills feel like playing a game.
That's amazing.
It's incredible.
And even artificial intelligence is starting to play a role.
Oh, wow.
In personalized instruction, tailoring content and pacing to each individual learner's needs.
It's like having a custom-designed learning journey.
It is.
But as we discussed earlier, technology is just a tool.
Right.
It's up to us as instructional designers and educators to use these tools thoughtfully and ethically, always keeping the needs of our learners at the forefront.
Couldn't agree more. It's about finding that balance between innovation and human connection. Technology can enhance learning. But it can't replace the power of human interaction and mentorship.
Well said.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into instructional design, I'm feeling incredibly inspired.
Me too.
It's clear that creating impactful learning experiences is both an art and a science.
Absolutely.
It's about understanding the principles, but also being adaptable, creative, and most importantly, learner-centric.
I hope our listeners are feeling inspired too. Whether they're seasoned educators or just starting to explore the world of instructional design. There's always something new to learn and discover.
And we'll be sure to include some additional resources in the show notes for those who want to delve deeper into specific topics. So keep that curiosity burning, keep exploring.
And keep striving to create learning experiences that make a difference.
Absolutely. Well said.